If you spent any time on BookTube, you know the formula. Cozy bookshelf background, a bubbly personality gushing about the latest releases, and a never-ending cycle of book hauls, TBRs, and wrap-ups. It looks effortless, like we just read all the time and naturally have endless books to talk about. But I was a booktuber, and I'm here to tell you a lot of what you see is not as normal as it looks. So here's what really goes on behind the camera from someone that's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and quite frankly had enough. I'm Will, I host the Book Geek. Like, sub, and tell me what you think in the comments below, and check out membership and Patreon's options. Talking to a camera like it's a person. The first time you do it, you feel utterly ridiculous. You sit there staring at a lens or your iPhone or whatever you're using, pretending you're having a conversation with real people. You say things like, "Hey guys, I missed you," knowing full well you're talking to an inanimate object in an empty room. But the more you do it, the more normal it feels. Soon you're cracking jokes to a lens, laughing at your own words, responding to comments as if they were live conversations. But here's the real talk. People do talk back, the comments, they engage, and suddenly the one-sided nature of it disappears, briefly, until you turn off the camera. And you're reminded it's just you, alone, talking to a camera, a plastic and glass inanimate object staring back at you. The black mirror, the existential crisis machine is what I like to call my phone. It isn't real. Yes, the comments are great. The comments, the discussions that we have are amazing, but that's how I like to keep it. I like to keep it as comments. At the end of the day, I find talking to a camera very difficult, and even now, recording into a ridiculously overpriced microphone, I still find it difficult. I'm very bad off script. And yes, looking at yourself staring back at you is one of the weirdest sensations you have when editing. It's not quite the person you are. Now, you know those gorgeous, curated, rainbow-coloured bookshelves with fairy lights and strategically placed plants? They are set pieces. If you pan the camera a little too far, you'll probably see a stack of unread books on the floor, a random cable, games console controllers, the cat litter tray, or a half-drunk cup of coffee from 2 days ago. I used to spend hours rearranging my bookshelves just to make them aesthetically pleasing. Books I hadn't read, front and centre. Books I had read, probably shoved off to the side because they didn't do the vibe check. And let's be real, a lot of the books I was reading I never talked about on YouTube because the amount of pushback you'd get for reading an air quotes controversial writer. Bret Easton Ellis, Chuck Palahniuk. I hid those. My bookshelves were carefully curated because I thought I had to do it. BookTube makes it look like you're living in a permanent bookish paradise, but the reality is that perfect background only exists in the frame of the camera. The rest of the room is usually a disaster zone, or completely not related to what they're doing. That's being 100% real about it. That's what it is. That's how it functions. Talk to anyone, and a lot of people wouldn't admit this, but go behind the scenes of any booktuber video or even YouTuber, and that carefully curated space is a tiny, carefully curated space. Now, this one is a little embarrassing to admit, but let's talk about consumerism. BookTube thrives on book hauls, new releases, special editions, re-released covers. I bought into all of it. The dopamine rush of buying books, showing them off to camera, seeing the comments section saying things like, "OMG, I need those too," was addictive. But here's the truth. Most of those books never got read. I already read them. I own them. That was it. Why am I buying another cover? Why am I buying a special edition? They sat on my shelves looking pretty, or many of them were gifts to other people. A lot of dusting, an amazing amount of dusting, while I was already buying more for the next haul. BookTube made it feel like owning books was the same as reading them, and I do collect books, but I'm very selective, mainly antiques. It's like having an impressive library makes you more of a reader, even if you barely crack the spines of half of them. Looking back, it was all about the Consumerism Digest. As a book enthusiast, I wasn't just reading, I was collecting, consuming, and honestly hoarding. Like, my hoarding nature is part of my DNA, and I fight it every day. And I wasn't alone. Almost every booktuber, both current and ex, that I know was doing exactly the same thing, and many of them still do it. Now, every month, booktubers post ambitious TBR lists with 10, 15, sometimes ridiculous numbers of books they swear they're going to read. The reality is most of them never get finished. The whole TBR culture is a performance. The bigger and more ambitious the list, the more impressive it looks. Viewers eat it up. It's the illusion of productivity. The promise of reading like that. It's not reality. Honestly, it isn't sustainable. It's not a reality for most people. Who has the time? Who has the space? And why? And when you don't finish your TBR, no big deal. You just push those books up to next month and repeat the cycle. The truth is, reading doesn't always happen at the same pace as filming, but the BookTube formula demands content creation, so we pretend. Now, booktubers make binge reading look easy. You see someone pick up a book in the morning and read it all day, post a glowing review by evening. What you don't see is the exhaustion of forcing yourself to power through a book just to make a video. The pressure to form an opinion immediately instead of letting the story sit with you, and occasionally skimming. Yes, some booktubers skim just to get through books faster. Although I do have a unique skill, I can speed read, which is a different thing, and I'm not getting into that. Sometimes reading in one sitting is great. Won't lie, there are certain books I've done that with and just couldn't put down. Other times it's rushed. And honestly, performative, just for the sake of engagement. And do you ever notice how booktubers seem to be reading the same books at the same time? That's not a coincidence, that's a strategy. There are lots of group chats, Twitter chats, whatever chats. I'm old, I don't know technology. I don't do the socials medias. But it's a strategy, it's talked about. A hyped up book means guaranteed views, whether it's TikTok blowing up a random fantasy series, or a publisher sending out early copies. Booktubers jump on trends because that keeps the algorithm happy. We make it look like it just happened to pick up a book in the hottest new release. But the reality is, it's often planned weeks or even months in advance. Sometimes we haven't even finished the book before making content about it. You're just trying to stay ahead of the trend before it dies out. None of this content is evergreen. And that's being honest. So, begs the question, is BookTube fake? Not entirely. The enthusiasm, for most people, is real. The love of books, absolutely. But the way BookTube presents reading as a constant, productive, aesthetically pleasing, effectiveless, trendy hobby isn't reality. It's content, it's entertaining. And behind the scenes, a lot of it is fueled by consumerism, performance, and the pressure to keep up with an industry that's moving so fast. I'm not saying BookTube is bad. It can be fun. There are some great people that I genuinely love, and I've met some amazing people while doing it. But if you've ever felt like you're not reading enough, not buying enough, or keeping up with the trends, remember this. Even the biggest booktubers aren't really keeping up, they're just making it look like they are. And I was guilty of that. Let's hold my hands up to naivety in me. So, what's something about BookTube you've always found a little strange? Let's talk in the comments. I'm curious.